Ever sent a message and watched it get read, but no reply came? An hour slipped by, then 6, then the sun set, the world kept spinning, birds flew south, and still nothing. But here's the thing, that person isn't dead, not kidnapped, not lost in some cave. They're just thinking, or avoiding, or rebuilding their entire emotional framework before they can type, haha, yeah. And maybe that person is you. Maybe you saw the message at 11 in the morning, felt something strangely heavy press against your chest, and thought, I'll answer this properly later. Then later became evening. Evening became tomorrow. Tomorrow became, sorry, just saw this, which is a tiny lie everyone understands, but nobody truly respects. But here's what matters. People who need a day to respond aren't all doing it for the same reason. Some are careful, some are drowning, some are quietly protecting themselves, and some are doing something that looks rude from the outside, but psychologically, it's actually survival. So if you've ever needed time before replying, or waited for someone who always seems to, there's a deeper pattern here, and it reveals far more about the inner world than the text itself. The first type is the emotional editor. You know this person. They don't send raw thoughts. They don't fire off whatever crosses their mind. They don't toss words into the world like confetti. They receive a simple message, hey, can we talk? And suddenly their brain opens 16 tabs. What's the tone here? Is something wrong? Will I sound cold if I reply too fast? Too eager if I sound too warm? Should I explain more? Less? Add an emoji? Delete the emoji because now it looks unstable? So they wait. Not because they don't care, but because they care too much about how they come across. These are people who learned, somewhere along the way, that words carry consequences. Maybe they grew up around criticism, misread intentions, or emotionally loaded conversations where one wrong phrase triggered an entire storm. So now they edit themselves before the world gets access. Their delay isn't always indecision. Sometimes it's self-protection disguised as politeness. They want the reply to be right because right feels safer than real. And if that sounds familiar, ask yourself this. When you delay answering, are you actually taking time to think or taking time to make yourself harmless? Then there's the overwhelmed processor. This person gets a message that requires thought, emotion, or any form of social energy, and their brain reacts as if someone just handed them a surprise group project. They read it, they care, they even intend to answer, but intention isn't the same as capacity. Picture it. Their phone lights up while they're already carrying too much internally. Maybe their day has been noisy. Maybe they've spoken to too many people. Maybe they're tired in that strange modern way where your body is still upright, but your mind has quietly gone offline. And now even a friendly text feels like another open loop, another demand, another tiny performance.
So they tell themselves, I'll respond when I can do it properly. And that's the key word, properly. Because for this type, replying isn't just sending information, it's entering a social space. It's matching tone, offering energy, being present. Even a simple answer feels expensive when your internal battery is blinking red. So they postpone. Not out of indifference, but because they don't want to give a half-alive version of themselves. Ironically, that often makes them look more detached than they really are. This is why some deeply caring people are terrible texters. Their silence isn't empty, it's crowded. Another profile is the conflict-sensitive decoder. These people don't just read messages, they read underneath messages. They hear the unsaid line, the shifted tone, the odd punctuation. A period can feel stern, sure can sound wounded, no worries can carry just enough worry to ruin their afternoon. And if the message contains tension, even mild tension, they don't want to answer fast, they want to answer carefully. Imagine they receive, "It's fine, do whatever you want." Now, to some people, that's just a sentence. To them, it's a psychological puzzle. People like this become slow responders because they're trying to manage emotional risk. They may have learned to scan for disapproval early in life. They may be unusually attuned to other people's moods, or they simply know that once a message is sent, it cannot be unsent from memory. So they pause, they rehearse, they soften, they rewrite. They choose words like someone crossing a frozen lake, one careful step at a time. The twist is that these people often look calm from the outside, low drama, thoughtful, mature, but inside they may be doing complex emotional math just to send 3 lines and a thumbs up. If you recognize yourself here, it might be worth wondering, are you responding to the actual message or to every possible version of what it might mean? But here's the twist. Not everyone who takes a day to answer is anxious. Some are reclaiming control. This is the quiet boundary setter, the person who used to answer immediately, the person who used to be available, responsive, helpful, emotionally efficient, the person who carried conversations that weren't theirs, solved discomfort that wasn't theirs, and somehow became the human equivalent of instant customer support. And at some point, something inside them changed. Now they wait. Not to manipulate, not to play games, just to feel like their attention belongs to them again. For this type, a delayed response is a small act of independence, a refusal to let every ping dictate their mood, a reminder that access is not the same as entitlement. In a world where everyone can reach you instantly, answering later becomes a way of saying, "My mind is not a public hallway." That doesn't mean they don't love people. It means they're trying not to disappear inside everyone else's urgency. And honestly, this type confuses people the most because we've been trained to interpret speed as sincerity. Quick reply, you care. Slow reply, you're distant. But that's not always true. Some people answer fast because they're anxious. Some answer slowly because they're grounded. Some delay because they're overwhelmed. Some because they're thoughtful. Some because they're afraid. And some because they're finally learning that being constantly reachable is not the same as being emotionally healthy. Of course, there's one more layer. Sometimes people need a day to answer because the message touches identity. It asks something of them they haven't settled internally, an invitation they don't know how to decline, a kind message they don't know how to receive, a vulnerable question they don't know how to answer honestly. In those moments, delay isn't about the other person at all. It's about the gap between what they feel and what they can comfortably express. That gap is where a lot of modern communication lives. We think texting is casual, easy, low stakes, but for many people, it's weirdly intimate. You're being asked to produce a version of yourself in real time, often without tone, context, facial expression, or the grace of a clumsy recovery. So yes, some people need a day, not because they're careless, but because their inner world doesn't move at notification speed. And maybe the most honest question isn't, why are they taking so long? Maybe it's, what happens inside someone before they finally press send? Because that's where the psychology is, in the pause, in the editing, in the overload, in the scanning, in the quiet rebellion against being permanently available. So, which one feels closest to you? The emotional editor, the overwhelmed processor, the conflict-sensitive decoder, the quiet boundary setter? Or maybe you're some inconvenient blend of all four, which frankly would explain a lot. However it lands, the next time you or someone else takes a day to answer, maybe don't rush to the simplest explanation. Silence isn't always avoidance. Delay isn't always disrespect. Sometimes it's just the time it takes for a person to find a version of themselves they can safely send. And if this made you feel a little too seen, you're probably in the right place. Stay a while. There's a lot more hiding in these small behaviors than people realize.
What happens inside someone before they finally press send? Because that's where the psychology is. In the pause, in the editing, in the overload, in the scanning, in the quiet rebellion against being permanently available. So which one feels closest to you? Or maybe you're some inconvenient blend of all four, which frankly would explain a lot. However it lands, the next time you or someone else takes a day to answer, maybe don't rush to the simplest explanation. Silence isn't always avoidance. Delay isn't always disrespect. Sometimes it's just the time it takes for a person to find a version of themselves they can safely send. And if this made you feel a little too seen, you're probably in the right place. Stay a while. There's a lot more hiding in these small behaviors than people realize.